Tony Danza's story began far from the bright lights of Hollywood. Born on April 21, 1951, in Brooklyn, New York, Tony grew up in a small apartment with his Sicilian mother and his father Matty, who worked as a garbage collector. The family struggled to make ends meet, and their neighborhood was rough, filled with street fights, gangs, and whispers of the mob. Rumors said Tony's father had hidden ties to organized crime, though Tony himself never truly knew the truth. Life was not easy. He was bullied for his accent and Italian heritage when the family later moved to Long Island. But even as a boy, Tony was a fighter, literally. He survived school not with grades, but with his fists. By 15, he was already known for his temper and strength. His father took him to a boxing gym to channel his anger into something productive, and that changed everything. Tony won his first fight by knockout, earning the nickname Dangerous Danza. Yet beneath his toughness, he was hiding a secret struggle: dyslexia. Reading was hard, and teachers often called him lazy. He felt stupid and angry, but deep down, he wanted to prove everyone wrong. That drive would define his entire life. The kid from the rough streets of Brooklyn was about to take a path no one expected, one that would lead him to fame, heartbreak, and decades of secrets behind one of America's most beloved sitcoms. Tony's boxing career began almost by accident. In 1975, some friends entered him in the New York Golden Gloves tournament as a joke. To everyone's surprise, he knocked out 6 opponents in a row, all in the first round. The crowd loved him. Between 1976 and 1979, he turned professional, winning 9 matches and losing 3, all knockouts. But the boxing world was full of corruption. The mob controlled fights, judges were bribed, and boxers were treated like pawns. Tony hated the dishonesty. When he realized he would never move forward without playing along, he decided to walk away. Then fate stepped in. One day, a casting agent spotted Tony working out at a Manhattan gym. His tough face, raw charm, and realness caught the agent's attention. Tony was offered a small role in a new TV show called Taxi. He had no acting experience, but his natural charisma shined. Taxi became a hit and launched his Hollywood career. Tony was suddenly famous, nominated for a Golden Globe, and earning more money than he ever imagined. But fame came with pressure. His film Going Ape flopped, his personal life was messy, and he felt lost between the man he was and the star people wanted him to be. Yet the biggest change was still to come, a new sitcom that would make him a household name and create the drama that haunted him for decades: Who's the Boss? In 1984, Tony landed the role of Tony Maselli, a former baseball player who becomes a housekeeper for a successful woman named Angela Bauer, played by Judith Light. The show, Who's the Boss?, became an instant success. For 8 seasons, it was one of America's favorite sitcoms, loved for its humor and the chemistry between Tony and Angela. Fans rooted for them to fall in love and finally get married. But behind the scenes, things were complicated. Tony Danza wasn't just the star, he also had creative control. When writers suggested a wedding between Tony and Angela, he said no. Many thought it was to keep the story interesting, but years later, Tony admitted the real reason. It was about money. He believed that if the characters got married, it would hurt the show's rerun value and syndication profits. That decision kept the tension alive on screen but caused real frustration off-screen, especially for Judith Light. Their friendship grew cold, and the tension between them became obvious. At the time, no one knew how much that single choice would affect their relationship. In interviews decades later, Tony confessed that while the decision made business sense, it damaged friendships and changed how people in Hollywood saw him. He went from being the nice guy to being viewed as difficult. Still, Who's the Boss? Made him a superstar, earning him millions and cementing his place in TV history, but it also came with heavy personal costs. While Tony's career was booming, his personal life was falling apart. His first marriage to Rhonda Yeoman ended in 1974 after he admitted to multiple affairs during his boxing years. They shared a son, Mark, and their custody battle dragged on for 6 painful years. Though they briefly reunited and had a daughter, Gina, the relationship didn't last. In 1986, Tony married Tracy Robinson, and they had 2 daughters, Catherine and Emily. For a while, life seemed stable. He was a TV star, a family man, and one of the most popular faces in America. But behind closed doors, things were different. Rumors spread of affairs with co-stars and production staff. In 2006, Tracy discovered messages and receipts that confirmed her suspicions. The marriage ended in a bitter divorce finalized in 2013, costing Tony millions in settlement. Meanwhile, his brother Matty got involved in shady business deals and even forged Tony's signature on a loan. Their bond was broken. Matty later died of a heart attack in 2014, and Tony carried that guilt deeply. The loss of his mother to cancer in 1998 had already crushed him, and losing his brother added to the pain. He blamed himself for not being there for the people who loved him most. Fame had given him everything: money, attention, success, but it also took away his peace. Tony later admitted that, at his lowest point, he turned to alcohol. He was arrested multiple times for DUI between 1999 and 2003. When he finally held his granddaughter for the first time, he decided to stop drinking for good. Rehab gave him a second chance, but his struggles weren't over yet. In December 1993, tragedy almost struck for good. Tony was skiing in Utah when he lost control and crashed into a tree at nearly 50 miles per hour. The accident shattered his spine, broke 8 ribs, collapsed a lung, and nearly killed him. After a 3-hour surgery, doctors weren't sure if he would ever walk again. Recovery took 2 years and more than 10 surgeries. During that time, Tony became addicted to painkillers and fell into depression. It was also when he began reflecting on the choices that had led him there: the fame, the arrogance, and the pain he caused others. His time on Who's the Boss had left scars too. A lawsuit from a fired actress, rumors of affairs, and a long-standing feud with his brother had tarnished his image. Even fellow actors like John Stamos shared painful stories about Tony, including one infamous incident involving a girlfriend. The media loved the drama, but behind the headlines was a man quietly fighting for his life, his career, and his soul. In later interviews, Tony admitted that his 1993 crash wasn't just an accident. He had been emotionally broken, thinking about his mother when he lost control. He called it a wake-up call from God. The man who once had everything now had to rebuild himself, both physically and emotionally, from the ground up. That recovery marked a turning point that would eventually lead him toward a different kind of success, one based on humility and purpose. After recovering from his injuries, Tony Danza faced a tough reality: Hollywood had moved on. His next show, Hudson Street, started strong but was canceled after 1 season. Another project, The Tony Danza Show, lasted only 5 episodes. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure where he belonged. But Tony wasn't ready to give up. He turned to theater, a lifelong dream. In 2004, he starred in The Producers on Broadway, where audiences discovered a new side of him. The tough Brooklyn boxer could sing, dance, and act with heart. It was a personal victory, but his biggest transformation came in 2010 when he starred in the reality show Teach, Tony Danza. In it, he taught English to 10th graders in Philadelphia. Viewers saw a vulnerable, emotional Tony who cried, struggled, and truly cared about his students. It was raw and real. He later said teaching was the hardest job he'd ever done, even tougher than boxing or acting. It helped him reconnect with his younger self, the kid who struggled with dyslexia and felt misunderstood. Through that experience, Tony found a new kind of fame, one based on sincerity and compassion, not ratings or money. He began speaking about education, redemption, and mental health, proving that it's never too late to start over. The same man once known for his temper and mistakes had become a symbol of resilience and second chances. By 2024, Tony Danza finally decided to speak openly about his past, the scandals, the regrets, and especially what happened on Who's the Boss. He admitted that he blocked the long-awaited marriage between Tony and Angela because of business reasons, not storytelling ones. He wanted to protect syndication profits, and he confessed that his choice had hurt his friendship with Judith Light. For years, they barely spoke. But with time, he realized how much that decision had cost him personally. Tony also reflected on his overprotective behavior toward his young co-star Alyssa Milano, admitting that while he saw her as a daughter, his strictness sometimes went too far. Despite everything, Tony found peace and honesty. He told audiences that his biggest lesson was learning that success means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. In 2022, when asked about a possible reboot of Who's the Boss, he said he refused because their beloved co-star Katherine Helmont had passed away. Yet, by 2024, he hinted that a revival might finally happen, not for fame, but for closure. At 73, Tony Danza remains a survivor. From a poor kid in Brooklyn to a Hollywood legend, he's faced every kind of battle, in the ring, on screen, and within himself. And after 40 years, he can finally say that the real boss wasn't fame or fortune, it was learning to forgive, to grow, and to live with truth. Tony Danza's life began far from Hollywood glamour. Born Antonio Salvatore Danza on April 21, 1951, in Brooklyn, New York, he grew up in a small apartment with his Sicilian mother, and his father, Matty, a garbage collector. Life was tough. Their neighborhood, East New York, was filled with crime, street fights, and rumors of organized crime. Tony often wondered if his father had hidden ties to local mob families, something he would later acknowledge made him cautious from a young age. The family lived paycheck to paycheck. Tony's mother worked tirelessly to support the family, while his father's unpredictable temper made life tense. At age 14, the family moved to Malvern, Long Island. The new neighborhood was quieter, but Tony didn't fit in. Kids bullied him for his accent and Italian last name, calling him cruel names. He struggled in school, hiding behind a tough exterior because teachers didn't believe in him. Yet even in those early years, Tony had a spark that no one could ignore. He scored nearly perfect on his SATs, surprising everyone who had doubted him. At school, he survived with fists rather than books, earning respect through his physical strength. By the time he finished high school in 1968, he had learned that life would not hand him anything, he had to fight for every inch of respect. Tony also had a younger brother, Matty Jr., who became his closest ally in childhood. Together, they faced a home life filled with tension, occasional violence from their father, and the need to grow up fast. By age 12, both brothers were already working, Tony delivering newspapers and Matty shining shoes outside clubs. These early responsibilities taught Tony discipline and resilience, laying the foundation for the challenges he would face in adulthood. Tony's father introduced him to boxing at 15, hoping the sport would channel his anger. Tony took to it naturally, displaying power, aggression, and an unshakable competitive spirit. His first fight ended in a knockout, leaving the opponent hospitalized with a broken jaw, and the nickname Dangerous Tony Danza quickly followed. In 1975, friends entered him in the New York Golden Gloves tournament as a joke. Tony shocked everyone by knocking out 6 opponents in the first round, an achievement few expected. Between 1976 and 1979, he fought professionally, winning 9 matches and losing 3, all by knockout. The sport taught him discipline, focus, and resilience, but also exposed him to corruption. The boxing world was dominated by mobsters who controlled matches and payouts. Judges were bribed, and fighters had little chance to succeed without playing along. Tony hated the dishonesty and saw firsthand how people around him got rich while he endured the pain. Despite these challenges, he persevered, building a reputation for toughness and determination. Injuries were frequent. In 1976, Tony's eye was badly damaged during a match, and he nearly lost his career. But he returned stronger, scoring knockouts and earning recognition. Yet, boxing alone could not provide him with a future. He realized that the sport, while teaching him strength, could not offer stability. This realization would eventually push him toward the world of acting, a decision that would change his life forever. In